out like looking at like TRT, like testosterone replacement therapy, is like everywhere is a scam. It's just like how bad of a scam is it? Like you can go to like a local place and they're gonna charge me like $200 a month, or I could just pay like $100, less than 100 a month, and get just like tests delivered to me. But then I don't know what the hell. I mean, it's coming from like some lab in Florida, and I'm like, I don't even know what this is. It seems sketchy, but like the idea, this is actually a good. I'm glad like we stumbled on this when we were offline. This is actually a good thing talking about testosterone replacement because so like steroid abuse is definitely a thing, and then like synthetic, like taking actual testosterone is not steroid abuse, like if it's under a doctor or whatever. And like the way I've been like looking at it, like you go get a blood test and they'll be like, oh, your testosterone's low, and they just bring you back up to optimal levels because I'm 41 years old. And I'm like, it's crazy that like that is now like normalized to somewhat. Like you still, it's normalized to where it's like it's not like a cloak and dagger thing. Like I can go up the street, I can go online, I can get whatever I want to literally get gender affirming treatment.
Yeah, that's what that is. I mean, it's literally gender affirming treatment.
But like we want to go after trans people who like want gender affirming,
same exact hormones.
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Exact same stuff.
It's wild.
But like that's like literally. Well, I mean, it's not even that different. Like
It's not different at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't need to take testosterone. Like I'm 41, but so I'm sure I haven't had a blood test. I'm sure.
Oh, we lost Robert. I'm posting the tweet, and we can get rolling in just a minute. But I'm glad we glad we didn't start like getting ready to recording. It's funny too because like I've been just fucking fighting all day and all night with Cox. So like we're even lucky we were able to record today because of just the horrible way that the internet's been working around here. I I've been like fighting with the internet. It was out for like 2 days. It's been, if you look at my timeline, it's just me like whining over and over again about how about Cox is out like over and over and over again. It's crazy, and yeah, it's just where we're at. I guess I don't know. Yeah, lost Robert. See if I can get him back. Doot, 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 doot. Hold on. Technical difficulties. Oh, there he is. He's back. What's up, man? You back? We lost you.
I was just talking away. I don't know. I went to look at another window real quick. Anyway,
closed it.
No, so you were just I was just talking away. But I was thinking, where did I leave off before I like cut
out? Gender affirming surgery.
Yeah, so it's like I don't need to optimize my testosterone. I don't have to have it to live. Mm-hmm. But I'm 41 and I don't want to have a dad bod. Like, I'm eating more protein. I like a shit ton more protein, a butt ton, yucks. A lot more protein. I'm lifting weights 5 to 6 times a week. But I just want to feel like I did in my 20s. And literally what that comes down to is I want to be like Twisted Steel like I was in the Marines. Mm-hmm. Like what that comes down to is I want to feel the way on the outside is how I feel on the inside. And that's exactly what trans people are trying to do. And like you take like a Jordan Peterson who you hear him rant about trans people. Like, what does he go do? He goes and has, hair plugs. He goes and has a surgery so he can feel more, so he can have masculine traits. of like having a full head of hair. It's absolutely ridiculous to go after somebody who wants a surgical, like surgery or something pharmacological to feel the way that they do
Mhm.
inside, to look that way outside. And we were talking, what brought
Joe
this on
Rogan does
was,
that stuff too.
yeah, Joe Rogan, and he does it all. He's an abuser. See, that's
Uh,
different. That's different.
you
Like,
mean he
well,
abuses the,
oh, he absolutely does. Allegedly, if Joe Rogan ever hear, he's an alleged steroid abuser. Because
from what I hear,
if you look at him with no shirt on, um, he's got the classic
being the
steroid
nips,
abuser,
those nips.
bubble gut. No, he looks like he looks like he has a turtle shell
He got
on his
turtle shell,
stomach.
but, like, also, I mean, you've seen the picture of him with the nips, right?
He's got gyno. I didn't know. I don't know all that.
Hold on, let me show you.
Yeah, so I'm not. Yeah, so that's the difference. Is like I'm just trying to optimize what I already have.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
like and just while you're looking for that, trans people are trying to do the same thing. Like every human being, I don't care what. Oh, I don't know anything about that. I don't
Oh, this
know.
business right here. I mean, that's
I'm
not
not.
normal, right? That cannot be
I don't
normal.
know. I don't know anything about that, but I know that bubble gut is what steroid abusers have.
Mhm.
When they
Also,
have that like bubble
he's got the cop thumb head too now.
gut. Eh,
He never used to have the cop thumb head, but now he's got the cop thumb head.
I don't know. I mean, that's not a steroid thing,
That's
but
just a cop thing.
I don't know what that is. To be honest, I know what
But
you're talking about.
it is what it is, the cop thumb head. Like, maybe he just, like, thought his hair was gone and
I
he just
mean, now we're getting into bro science because like there is a thing like if you have more testosterone, like you have, but that's like genetics. I don't think you can put that on. Like you have your forehead ridges are like a lot more pronounced, and you have like a thicker chin
Mhm.
when you have more test. But I don't think like if you look like even like if you look at China, like Joni Lawler and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But like a lot of that's genetics too. Like, and I don't mean that steroids
Well,
got
she
like
did
takes.
did she do steroids?
Yeah, yeah,
Probably,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
No?
yeah, yeah. But the thing is, her genetics were already there.
Yeah, she was a
Like,
big brained woman.
right. So what that is she had more testosterone naturally than like the average woman.
Mhm.
And so it's like natural for women to have testosterone anyway. It doesn't matter what gender we came out as. Or not actually, see, look at me. I'm using the wrong stuff. It doesn't matter what sex we came out as.
Or which were
We
assigned at birth.
we both have like male sex, not gender, but male sex and female sex. We have the same hormones in us. It's just what balance of what. So if
Mhm.
somebody's like, yeah, like the way I feel this way, so I want more testosterone, and like that's men are doing this. There's you can watch a commercial on late night TV. So watch a ESPN at like Sports Center at midnight. You're gonna see some guy with a pot belly talking about how he feels sluggish and slow, and all he got this cream that he rubs in his head. It's like he's on the cream. He's on the same thing that Barry Bonds was on.
Yeah. Man,
Like
that whole
what?
Barry Bonds thing, when you think about that, like, forever ago, like, the whole steroids witch hunt that baseball is still they're still doing it really with the Hall of Fame and stuff like that. Like, they're still like, is Barry Bonds even in the Hall of Fame? Even though he's, like, the
No,
greatest hitter of all time? Like,
no.
that's crazy.
Now,
Like,
if you
Barry
want to transition to sports, like
Like
my
Barry
opinion
Bonds,
is
let me
like,
just say, like, Barry Bonds is a jerk. He's a terrible person. He, like, was awful with fans.
yeah,
He,
he's
like,
awful.
hated he was terrible with the media. It sounded like he was terrible with his teammates. He didn't join the union. Like, there's a lot of negative things about Barry Bonds, but the truest thing about him is that he hit the ball harder and farther than anybody ever did. And with the, it was just like, I don't know. And he was a 500 guy with
Yeah.
and he had, I know, his head got bigger and bigger because of the use of these steroids or whatever. But like, who cares? Who cares? Like, that's the one thing that, like, if you wanna send Barry Bonds up on anything, like, go for it, except for the steroids. I don't know,
Well,
man.
the
Well,
thing about steroids,
yes.
and like, if you want to transition to just like a guy like me who just wants to have an optimal test level, and I'm just a normal guy working a desk job, and you want to transition from that to gender affirming pharmacological treatments or surgery to sports. My opinion is all athletes should just be on. They should be on testosterone,
They're trying to
like
be the best, right?
all of them, and then they should just be medically monitored so
If you can
like people
compete
aren't
in sports
abusing.
if you can compete in sports without doing steroids, God bless. But,
Well,
like,
it's not even about like it's about getting the optimal effort, for the work the optimal outcome for the work you're already putting in. But the real reason that like people don't want to talk about why you should be on it, like, is because of recovery. And
mhm.
like I'm not saying like wow, this is like the sports steroid show now. But like children, like youth sports, absolutely not. And it's not like because it's because one, your testosterone levels are already through the roof. So you're already going to be like an abuser already, and it's going to mess you up. Two, you don't like the craziest kid who's playing like travel winter league baseball does not need has time to recover. So we're like a professional like MLB like baseball player. The reason why you're taking steroids at that level is because you're playing 100 and whatever 60 games a year or something, 182 games a year, and you need that to recover. How we got onto this before we came on the air, we were talking about wrestling, and that guy Kip whatever, the guy
Uh,
who was
Billy Gunn.
yeah, Billy Gunn, he is like an advocate for TRT and testosterone
He's a
replacement
massive,
therapy,
huge
and he's a
dude.
huge old man, and
Yeah,
he's
he's
just
like
like, yeah,
58 or like 60, almost 60 years old, and then
yeah,
he
and he's
looks
like, yeah, I need
incredible.
this for recovery, and it's like it's true though. Like I'm 41 and I'm hitting the gym, and my joints are just like my muscles don't get sore, my muscles recover, my joints,
Mhm.
whoo,
Hurts bad,
buddy,
man.
buddy, and it wasn't
Getting
like
old
that.
ain't no joke.
No, it wasn't like that 10, 20 years ago.
Mhm,
And like my joints are on fire for days.
mhm,
And so just having like an optimal testosterone level will help you recover from that. And if like a woman wants to have, and I mean like a woman in all sense and all gender, like if they want to have an optimal estrogen level so
mhm.
they can feel going back, so they feel the same way, they look the same way on the outside as they feel inside, who am I? Like nobody's I'm nobody to say that shouldn't be happening. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like do
Boys,
that.
girls, and
Make it
NBs,
happen.
if hormones work for you, then take them,
Yeah,
regardless of your gender, regardless of, like,
right.
if you're trans or whatever.
Like nobody, and I tell you, like to be straight up, if you want to talk about, anabolic steroid abuse or whatever, like a lot like guys are doing that, abusing that recreationally for fun, just because they're like, oh, I want to add 30 pounds to my bench or like whatever. Like I want to look good. Like
Also, like
no trans person's doing that for fun.
yeah.
No one's like, oh, it'd be cool. It's like the cool thing to do.
Mhm.
Nobody's thinking like that.
Also, like, cultures of that stuff that are just implemented by the boss, that's a problem, was in WWF in the 1990s, right? Remember that?
Mhm.
That was
Sure.
another big deal, and that, like, Vince McMahon was essentially, like, running a steroid operation. I mean, he was acquitted of all charges, but, like,
But
allegedly.
ironically, like, yeah, that stuff will mess you up. Like, if you are abusing it, like, it looks crazy. Like, one, it makes your body look crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Two, like, it does mess up your cardiovascular system. But like, the poison's in the dose, like everything else pharmacological. Like, if you are just optimizing and you're doing it under a doctor's care, like, there's there's nothing dangerous about it.
Mhm.
Have you ever watched that movie? I think it's like a maybe 15-year-old movie now. And I think it's free on YouTube. It's called Bigger, Stronger, Faster.
No.
It's like a movie about anabolic steroids, and then
That was
it
like
goes
that was the workout routine that we used when I was in high school, like bigger, stronger, faster, or something like
I
that.
don't know.
Yeah.
And then they talk about that, and he compares it to like SSRIs or like kids taking Adderall, like everybody's on something, like
Yeah.
just caffeine to get through the day, that kind of thing. But no, it's good. That's my I don't know. I just had that on my mind because I'm like, yeah, I'm like, oh, my shoulders are sore, man.
You want something to make that better, right?
I know, but it's hard to find. It's hard to find a clinic. I tell you, it's hard to find a clinic that's like doesn't feel like a scam and isn't like overcharging me. It doesn't feel shady. Either it feels legit and they're charging me way too much. That I know this is like, oh, $250 a month. That's crazy.
Mhm.
And then another place is like, oh, this $55 a month, and it just feels so shady.
Yeah.
like
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
nah. It's got to be something in the middle. I'm looking for it. Got to be something in the middle between like going to the Mayo Clinic and like meeting a guy in like the bathroom stall at the gym,
Right.
which is what like a lot of these online clinics feel like. Like I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Well, you want to change gears?
Sure.
Let's talk about look, you've been to Trader Joe's before, right? It's
Once
like
or twice. They have the cowboy caviar is real good. I
yeah,
like
it's the
that.
place where they have like the
Aldi food that they charge more for.
yeah, basically, I mean, they have
It
some
is. It's
fresh
owned by
stuff, I
Aldi.
guess there. They have, like, a decent beer selection or whatever, but, like, most of it's just, like, frozen food that they sell that you can, like, cook up but it's a store that, like, a lot of, I don't know, like, middle class, like, suburban white people go to, basically, right? That sound fair?
Oh yeah, you know it is owned by Aldi though, right?
I didn't know it was owned by all
100%. It's owned by Aldi.
mhm.
Fact check me on that. I know it is, but like, yeah. So it's just
I don't know.
Aldi. I mean, like the food
Maybe
is
it's owned by all
good,
mhm.
but the
Yeah,
food,
yeah,
like, I like Trader Joe's, but like, yeah, it's super. It's so easy to spend like a C note in there. It's unbelievable.
yeah. Well, anyway, Trader Joe's just today,
I
it was
fact check
announced
myself. Go ahead.
just today it was announced that the first store in that chain has formed a union. Trader Joe's store. This is from the Guardian. I'm reading from Trader Joe's store in Massachusetts become first to unionize. The supermarket chain is the latest major company where workers who passed a vote 45 to 31 have unionized. So there you go. Shout out to the Trader Joe's union.
It's pretty
That's
cool.
coming off the heels of. I mean, again, Starbucks have done hundreds of stores already and still counting. All kinds of stuff. So we have a whole lot of workers doing organizing and doing cool stuff. So shouts out to the workers over at Trader Joe's.
No, I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, more unions, the better.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can just read from this article real quick. Employees at a
Please.
Trader Joe's supermarket in Massachusetts on Thursday became the latest workers at a large company to approve a labor union. The store in Hadley, about 80 miles west of Boston, is the first Trader Joe's with an employees union. Although workers at two other locations have initiated union efforts in different parts of the country. Vote passed 45 to 31 and it's part of a nationwide wave of employees at major companies who are attempting to unionize. I mean, right now we have Amazon, we have Starbucks, now we have Trader Joe's. It's all kicking off. So I mean, like, this is awesome, man. I mean, this is one of those things where we got workers just doing organizing. It's sweet. Uh, Robert,
No, go ahead.
organizers at the Hadley store launched the effort in May. In an open letter to the company, CEO Dan Bain citing concerns about pay, benefits, and safety. About 89 supervisory employees were eligible to vote, including what the company calls crew members and merchants. They can never call workers workers. Like, if you ever work at one of these places, like, I remember when I applied for a job and didn't get it, like, one time to go like Outback. And it was like, oh, you want to be an Outbacker, huh? It's like, like, why can't you just be like a worker?
Because you have to be a team member. You have to like have buy-in to have your fake. It's. We were talking about cults earlier, like
Yeah,
off air, and how
every job.
I was in a sales cult, and that's that cultist behavior. It's to try to change language,
Mhm.
and then that way, so when things are going bad, you feel like you're part of the Outback, TGI Fridays, Bennigan's family,
Mhm.
and it kind of freezes you for a moment before you hit the door.
It catches
Um, yeah, so it's to make you feel like, oh, they really care about me here, and yeah, absolutely not. I'm so glad I work at a place where like I don't have to, like, I actively be like, please do not. If you use the word challenge in front of me, I'm gonna throw hot coffee at you.
or like
Like, I
when
know when you say it's
I,
challenging, I already know you're trying to play me like Boo Boo the Fool.
yeah, when I was
Please
fighting
don't
with
use that language.
fighting with Cox all weekend, and like in parts, like I literally my internet's been out like day after day, like running up into today, And like one of the things that they would always say is, "Oh, I can understand why this is customer service people and doing corporate speak." And like obviously this is not on like the customer service
Mhm.
person, but like the thing that they would always say is, "Oh, I understand how challenging it could be when you have interruptions of service. How can we work towards solving this problem together?" You know, like instead of saying like we as the service provider, um, how do we fix it? No, no, no. We have to fix this problem together. Like sharing the responsibility despite the fact that you're paying them to provide this service.
Well, I mean, that's a
It's,
little
cor-
different
it's
because
corporate
I've
speak.
had that job, and what you're doing is you're doing reflective listening like a therapist, to where like your boss, like that kind of the corporate cult isn't reflective. The corporate cult is, we came down off of Mount Sinai, and here are the tablets, and this is what will go and will not go in the Outback Steakhouse family. But never forget, we
That's
are a
dictatorial
family.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I ask you, so when I tell you got to stay late to cover a shift, it's to benefit the family. It's not to benefit the corporation of Outback. You're doing it for the family of the Outback. Yeah.
Mhm,
But that's the difference.
mhm,
I've had that job. Like a lot of people, the reflective listening thing is, a lot of people just want to be heard.
mhm.
They want to be heard. They want to have their thing. They're not even necessarily looking for an answer. They just
No, no.
want you to
I was
understand.
looking. Let me assure you, I was looking for an answer. I wanted my internet back on. That's
I
what I
know.
wanted.
I
Anyway,
know.
we're I just like wanted to just compare, like let's say that the corporate speak sounds similar in certain kinds of ways, if
No,
you know what I mean.
absolutely. And see, that's one of my red flags. If I go on a, like, to the point of my life, if I was on a job interview and the hiring manager, HR, whatever, starts talking about how challenging things are, or I dip out. I'm already like, this is a nonsense place. It's
It's abuse.
toxic.
It's
We're not
really
doing that.
abusive. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, instead of just but you'd be surprised how many people it really. I don't know. See, this is one of those things where I'm not I'm not better than other people, but this is one of those things where it's like I really question my own head, because I rather be told, because this that kind of stuff works for a reason.
Yeah.
I'd rather be told, hey, Robert, this thing I need you to do is bad. Like, it's really bad.
Mhm,
But like, I need you to do it, and here's why. And I can deal with that.
mhm.
But if
We
you try
respect
to
honesty.
tell
We respect honesty is the thing.
Yeah, but if you try to tell me something's not bad, and we all know it's bad, and the emperor has no clothes, it's a extra. It's not only am I going to have to do something that's bad, it feels like you're insulting my intelligence. It
Mhm,
feels like you're playing me like a fool, and I cannot deal with that. That is more of a slight than doing the thing that's bad.
mhm.
That's But a
Because
lot of people can't deal with that though. A
yeah.
lot of people can't. A lot of people need to be like coddled and have their hands held. I don't know. It makes me feel like I'm crazy, like a
Mhm,
pop person. I
mhm.
don't know.
Oh, I would never call you not crazy, my buddy. Don't
Yeah,
worry about that. But like,
thank you.
I mean that in the nicest way
No,
possible.
I know what you mean.
But like, anyway, we're kind of anyway. Shout out to the Trader Joe's Union, just to kind of circle back, and then I kind of wanted to move on to
Please.
something that's really exciting. So like, how much do you know about this transportation strike that's happening in England right now, in UK, and Turf.
None. To be honest, none, because what I know is, I know what's going on at number 10 Downing Street. I know a bunch of people who stabbed,
Boris
your boy
Johnson,
Boris in the back, are now trying to clamor and get that job.
justice for Boris. Is that what you're trying to say?
I don't know. I, j- I'm trying to say, I wish that I wish that labor was better.
Yeah, well, it's
They could
not.
use
I
the
mean,
opportunity.
tellingly, so basically, there is a transportation strike taking place in the UK right now, and notably on that front, like the Labour Party, the American Labour Party, I mean the UK Labour Party, has very conspicuously decided just to like not back the labor union that's on strike right now, which is just so ridiculous. I mean, the idea that you have a labor party that doesn't support labor is like, why do you exist? Right? You're just literally the other party of capital, the other party of lords and monarchy and earls and all this other stuff. It's ridiculous. But anyway, one of the people that has come to my attention who I didn't know about prior is Mick Lynch, which is like, by the way, like a super like oi bruv British name, isn't it? Mick Lynch, and
Sounds like a boxer, yeah.
he does sound like a boxer. And then like he's got this other dude named Eddie Dempsey, which is also sounds like a like if those two dudes were fighting, it sounds like somebody from like the 1980s or 70s who were like, you know, scrappy British lads coming in, fighting it out. What was the I don't know. Anyway, here is what
What are you gonna say?
I don't
You gotta say something cringe and then pull back.
buddy, I would never ever say anything cringe. I would never do that. Don't even it makes me laugh. Anyway, here's Mick Lynch when asked, because I mean obviously the just like in America, the British press, when workers decide to actually stand up for themselves, like people start talking about, are unions doing too much? Are they too powerful in Great Britain? You know, that old chestnut, like obviously when workers go on strike in America, it was like, wow, what else did the workers possibly want? And it's always framing it in these really like BS ways. It's never, are the bosses too powerful or anything like that. It's always the workers wanting too much. But anyway, here's Mick Lynch addressing that question.
We haven't got too much power. The problem in this country is that trade unions don't have enough power. That's why so many people are suffering poor wages.
So based.
Such an imbalance in the workplace. And it's a shame that the Tory party is descending into an ultra-right clique at the moment. And Liz Truss is seeking to take away human rights and the ability of the democratic right of people to express themselves through their trade unions and industrial action, which is one of the pillars of our democracy. It's only repressive regimes that stop people going on strike and stop them expressing themselves and stop them rebalancing the power in the workplace through their trade unions.
Right. So, like, literally, the idea of workers standing up for themselves, and like that is like that's the most basic rights that you can possibly have, right? I don't know.
Of course.
And this framing that like workers shouldn't have the power to stand up for themselves, or to like fight for better wages, fight for better benefits, fight so that they're not getting screwed over at the job like every single day, is one that is like fundamentally it doesn't even fit like the liberal framework of the world, if you know what I mean. Like the idea of like enlightenment liberalism and like these rights of free speech and free association and all these other things, like the fact that these workers can't express themselves in that way is actually pretty like in line with that framework, even though like it doesn't go far enough. I don't know, like it's just extremely absurd to even ask the question, like, do unions, which are the representatives of workers, do they have too much power? But it's never the boss. The boss never has too much power.
I mean, I'm trying to think, like, in the UK, like, where would that rhetoric come from? Because at least
in BBC, man, it comes from like the main media outlets in the country.
Well, no, I mean, like, what leg does that have to stand on? I'm trying to look at it objectively, because okay, if we're gonna look at like America, and if somebody says, well, or have unions gone too far? Like, obviously that's nonsense, but you could at least use like the cudgel of like organized crime. I'm trying to pull at any kind of straw, to be like to try to bash people over the heads with, like, oh, like the Teamsters were involved with the mob, or whatever, and be like, that's the unions going too far. Like, what's the example of like unions going too far in the UK, in Great Britain? I mean, I'd love to know if there is one. Maybe I should Google that and educate myself. But it's absurd. Well, it's like what you said.
I'll just say that this definitely isn't it.
No, it's absurd. Like what you said, it's like skyrocketing. CEOs have never-ending profits that aren't shared with the people who make those profits, and it's never too far for them. You've got Obama out there. I'm trying to think of somebody British. I don't want to pull tired of talking about Elon Musk and Jeffrey Bezos. Let's talk about Richard Branson. You got Richard Branson making a fool of himself with the St. Augustine, with the St. Aug band here in New Orleans and fun boarding with Obama. It's never too much for him. Never. But it's always too much for somebody who is just trying to make ends meet, who's actually making a way so this man can go fun board.
Here he is on Good Morning Britain reacting to the idea of nationalizing the rail system in Great Britain, which is, I believe, and maybe we'll get a little more information on that here, but I believe it's still owned by the government. It's just the service of running the rail system is contracted out to companies, almost like charter schools here. Essentially the responsibility falls on the government, but we're doing public-private partnerships to because that's more efficient or whatever. But here's Lynch on the idea of nationalizing rail.
Some parts of the country without any services at all. But what exactly is the dispute about? The disagreement centres on reforms being introduced by Network Rail. They say they've offered workers a 2-year 8% pay deal with a guarantee of no compulsory redundancies and discounted travel for employees and their families. But the RMT left the talks.
The union says there's been no change or improvement in the pay offers it's received, and Network Rail threatened compulsory redundancies, according to them, along with 50% cuts to maintenance work, which it says would be unsafe if strike action was not withdrawn.
Well, joining us now is the RMT's General Secretary, Mick Lynch. Good morning to you. Thanks for joining us this morning. So, another day of disruption. Why is there no agreement on this? What's the sticking point from your point of view?
Well, Network Rail have made a set of proposals that are unacceptable to our members. They're changing their work-life balance, they're changing their unsocial hours, and the pay offer, which is an offer over 3 years, is inadequate to address the cost of living crisis that we're all experiencing. And on the other hand, we've got the train operating companies who've got an agenda to shut every booking office in Britain, go back to the guards disputes that we've been dealing with over the last 6 or 7 years, and they also want to make mass redundancies, and they've made no offer on pay whatsoever. To us. So we've got a situation where we've got a large gap to bridge, and we're not in a position now where we can settle. So we need to work hard on this. We need to get the negotiations on again, and we need a government that's willing to facilitate an agreement, because the government is vetoing a settlement in this dispute. Grant Shapps is the Minister of Transport, and he has a veto over the train operating company's negotiating position, and of course he is the shareholder and owner of Network Rail. So we've got
all right. So really quickly, the people that they're negotiating is Network Rail, right? And the companies that are sort of a part of that, Grant Chaps, he's the transportation secretary, and he owns a stake in these companies, and he can just unilaterally reject any deal that that would be settled. Essentially, he's a transportation secretary. He's got obviously a conflict of interest. He's not going to recuse himself, of course, because he's he's not a cuck, obviously, because he's not going to do that. But that's just sort of like setting the table.
Position where we need to work some solutions through around the negotiating table, and we're not there yet.
Okay, well, we're speaking to Grant Shapps later, so we will get his response to that. But from the point of view of the pay, then you've been offered this 2-year 8% deal. Where in your mind does that need to get to? Because
so it's like an 8% increase in funding, but no pay raises for workers. And again,
sucks.
Yeah, yeah.
You've got the 8% deal. They say they've given you a no compulsory redundancy guarantee, other benefits and extras on the table, but they say you left the talks over that. So does it just come down to the pay? Because they have said that there'll be no compulsory redundancies. Is the main sticking point for you the level of pay increase that your members have been offered?
Well, it doesn't come down to the pay, no. It's a pay deal over 3 years. Our members got no pay increase last year, and they've offered us a 2-year deal over the next 2 years. So it covers a 3-year period where inflation at the moment today is 11.8% on the retail price index. So it doesn't match this year's cost.
So what he's saying really smart. He's basically saying that, like, even if they're getting like a slight pay increase or whatever, the fact that it's not like in line with, it's not even the same as inflation, which is like the how much more stuff costs over the next year. The fact that it's not even that, it's such a like crappy increase that it's not even worth considering. It's essentially like a slightly less pay decrease than if they got nothing.
Damn.
And it won't match next year's cost where inflation will be high. But on top of that, we've got some conditions of service proposals where they're looking for 50% cuts in the maintenance regime, which we think is not safe. They want to move us to a position where we're taking on a much more unsocial hours contract. And there are changes to the working practices which are not acceptable to our people, which we think will make their working lives a misery. Now, we can work on that. We can get to a position where we get the modernisation that the company is looking for, but they've got to value the changes they want properly so that our members get a square deal. But on the other side of this, we've got the train operating companies as well, which is 50% of this dispute, where we've not got an offer on pay whatsoever that is anywhere near suitable. So there's a big division between the two sides. But the person that's responsible for that is Grant Shapps. He owns Network Rail effectively, and he has a veto in the contracts on what's offered to us. And he is in charge of industrial relations in the train operating companies, and that's written into their contracts.
Mick, there was a threatened strike at British Airways, and then that was called off because they managed to do a deal. Grant Shapps told us last week he was involved in bringing the two sides together. Why is it possible to get a deal?
That's how you know it was a bad
in the BA
deal.
strike, but not in this rail strike?
You know it was a bad deal because Grant Shapps is the one that came in and brokered it.
No,
The Tory like transportation minister is like, you know what? Here's a terrible deal. You'll take it, and unfortunately, the workers took it. Look at this dude, by the way. Just like,
look at this dude.
look at him.
Well, I imagine it's because
Like he even looks kind of like a boxer. Like Mick Lynch just looks like a
Oh yeah.
He's got that vibe.
in the aviation industry want to get a settlement. I don't think Grant Shapps wants to get a settlement to this dispute. We've seen the two Tory leadership contenders puffing out their chests and saying that they'll make effective strike action virtue.
Yeah, and it, like, by the way, this took place, or this is taking place, like right in the middle of, like you were saying earlier, like Boris Johnson, the like weird like British version of Donald Trump, like being ousted. So like the government is in complete disarray and chaos, and you have like the two people that are contending for his job essentially like saying like I'll give the workers at the rail companies a worse deal than the other guy, you know, and it's just like a race to the bottom in that way. So this doesn't seem like it's going to end anytime soon.
Illegal. So if you're talking to him, if he wants to give me a ring and get in contact and facilitate an agreement, we could get round the table with him this afternoon if he wants. I know where he works and he knows where I work. So if a deal going, I'm very happy for him to.
I love this dude, man.
Catch me outside. How about that?
Ask you about there's been a bit of confusion in the last couple of days about Labour's approach to.
I know where you work, son. I know where your mama work.
And also about whether ministers should be on picket lines. But just to ask, if Labour were the government and the railways were brought back into public ownership, how do you think that would change things for you in this kind of dispute? Who would you be talking to, do you think? And the kind of things which are being asked of your members at the moment on pay and on modernisation, those reforms, do you think they would change if there was a Labour government and a nationalised railway?
Well, I think if we had the railway in public ownership, we'd properly fund it. At the minute, what's happened here is that Grant Shapps and the Treasury have removed £2 billion from the funding of National Rail, and they've removed £2 billion from the funding of London Underground, and that's caused a massive gap. And this is where the savings that they're seeking to make, which comes out of the pay bill and other measures, has come from. So if we had a properly funded railway, we wouldn't have this problem. And if we had a properly funded railway, we'd have a more secure future, not just for the workers in the industry, but also for the passengers, so that we could get a proper fare structure that people get value from. And the railway would be run in the interest of the economy and the interest of the environment and the interest of the users.
So
At the
Labour would be
moment, the
putting
problem
more
is that
public
last
money-
Smartly,
year...
he smartly answered that too, like talking about how, like, if the... So he didn't say, like, we definitely want to have a nationalized rail system in the UK. He probably may, I assume he would say that we should have that or whatever. But, like, he kind of answered it in sort of a squishy way, to the point that, like, he would basically say, just fund the railroad system and stop trying to catch me on like a different question.
Sorry, Mick. So Labour would be putting more public money in.
In the worst year for...
Sorry, Mick.
Not necessarily. Last year, in the worst year of passenger revenues, the private companies took out £500 million of profit from this industry. And that's where one of the big gaps has come from. So if we got rid of the privateers, we could concentrate on running a service for the benefit of the people.
And if you had Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak, they're going to legislate to say strikes in railways are illegal, would you then advise your members to break the law, or would you be fighting the government in the courts?
Well, we will look at the law and see what we can do in the courts. But if they make it impossible to have lawful industrial action, then workers will have to see whether they take unlawful industrial action.
That's just the Cockney Malcolm X.
Dude,
by any means necessary, mate.
I don't mean to say like that, like, I don't mean to be like that negative on American labor leaders or stuff like that, but I cannot imagine a single one of them that I can think about other than like Sarah Nelson or like Christian Smalls saying something like that. Like,
no, absolutely. Yeah, anybody with actual power? No way.
Like, well, I mean, Sarah's got power, and she advocated. She did very much a similar thing when they did the government shutdown a couple of years ago. Basically saying that we're not going to put our own workers in danger on these underfunded, flights or whatever. And that's how she sort of made her bones. And this is Mick Lynch saying something that's even, I would say, a little bit more out there, in like the best way possible, saying that if the government makes it illegal for workers to strike, then we're just gonna have to ask. He really put it in a smart way too. He basically said we're gonna have to have our members decide if they're willing to do it unlawfully, which is the right way to do it, because unions are supposed to be run by the members, at least to some level. They're supposed to be run for at very least by the consent of the members. And again, unfortunately, a lot of the times the way we sort of see these things kind of play out is that when running afoul of the law gets involved, a lot of the times, and this is not historically always the case, but it's a contemporary phenomenon, at least for the past since the Reagan fired all the air traffic controllers. Basically, running afoul of the law is like not something that labor leaders are interested in doing. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely not. Like our labor leaders are trying to work within the system. This guy's trying to kick the whole table over, which I love and respect. Like, because I'm to the age, that's the only thing that's going to get anything done. You can't.
You got to rattle at least a little bit harder,
Yeah, you do. You can't just look for You can't just look for a spot at the table. You got to be working to create a whole new table. Mm-hmm. I know that's a longer project and a harder project, but
I mean, otherwise it's just constantly taking L's forever, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Industrial action, then workers will have to see whether they take unlawful industrial action. That's a matter for them at the time. We'll have to see what the law says. But we've come from that place. I was at the Toll Puddle Martyrs Festival last week where we were deporting trade unionists. We used to charge trade unions with sabres. Now, the way that Liz Truss is going on a direction from being a liberal to being an ultra-right hardliner, maybe she's going to bring that back as well. No doubt she'll be saying bring in the army next. But what we do need is a settlement to this dispute. And we need a Bill of Rights for workers in the workplace so that they can get a proper set of agreements and have some stake in the workplace.
Okay, that's a little bit too far. A Bill of Rights for workers? I don't know about all that.
Okay. Okay. That's enough of
Okay.
that.
All right, time to end this conversation. Anyway, that was pretty awesome. I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I get pumped up for that kind of stuff because I'm a nerd
No,
for.
he rules. I like your nerdiness.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, there was also a really dope interview with Mick Lynch that I posted on my Twitter that I kind of want to go through a little bit here as well. And then we can sort of jump because there's actually a little bit of talk of railroad workers in America that are possibly going to go on strike nationally. But we'll get to that in a minute. Here's Mick Lynch. It's no good being pissed off. We need organization. This is from Tribune Magazine. In the weeks since the 40,000 RMT members voted for strike action, the largest rail strike since at least the 1980s, a lot has changed in the national conversation. The cost of living crisis has pushed millions of workers to the brink of poverty. After a decade of pay squeeze, inflation is running over 11%, and even the basics are increasingly unaffordable for many people across Britain. This was the backdrop to this summer's rail strike, which pits the RMT and also ASLEF and the TSSA, both against profiteering rail companies and the Tory government. The ministers and bosses believe that the strikes would be massively unpopular, but polls in the recent weeks have consistently shown public opinion moving in favor of the workers. That's important to have the public on side because that means they're against what the government's doing. In favor of workers and their trade unions. Is this the start of a wider fight back of working people? Tribune sat down with Mick Lynch. So here's some questions. A lot has happened since the rail strike kicked off in June, but I think it's worth reminding people about why it started. Can you give us some background in this dispute? This is the reporter Ronan Botenshaw, who does great work, by the way. Ronan's pretty awesome. The background, this is Lynch talking. The background is COVID. As soon as COVID came around, the passenger numbers dropped because they asked people to stay home. The government asked people to stay home. And they came to us, the government and the companies, saying that the industry's got to change. They wanted to use this as a once-in-a-generation opportunity to cut costs and get working people working practice changes that they've been after for years. So it's exactly what they've been pushing. So essentially what that means is when COVID happened, they busted out the old never let a disaster or a good disaster go to waste playbook and decided to say, hey, this is how we can just gut the public sector, right? This is how we can essentially cut down on public transportation and get people into individual vehicles like we have all over America. If you don't live in like one of a dozen cities in America or so, then you're SOL when it comes to transportation. You need a car or you need to be able to bike to wherever you got to go. It's been delayed from summer 2020 because the train operating companies collapsed. Since that time, they've been working out emergency measures in passenger service contracts. The government has been stuffing their mouths full of gold, in effect, and saying, we will take all the risk out of your business. This is basically just completely and utterly giving everything to the companies that run the rail system. You won't have to put any capital at risk. Your returns will be lower, but it'll be guaranteed. They've got this model now that the companies get a royalty, essentially, of all the cost of the business. So essentially, like they're essentially get to do like they're guaranteed income. So it's almost like that they're almost like tax collectors themselves. The companies have essentially been put to an extension of the government, right?
That's awful, dude.
Mm-hmm. How much do you think the bosses of Network Rail? Whoa, what was that? How much do you think the bosses of Network Rail and maybe the government too see a future for this rail country in this country without a well-organized fighting union and the RMT involved? He goes on. But essentially, he again advocates over and over again for workers being organized and fighting for what they need. So I recommend everybody to check out the article. It's in Tribune Magazine by Ronan Botenshaw. It's called Mick Lynch. It's no good to being pissed off. We need organization. So I don't know. I thought that was pretty dope.
Yeah, I mean, I just wish, like, going back to what you said again, I just wish we had fighters like that in this country. It seems like I don't know too much about, except what gets fed, over mainstream media about British politics, but it seems like they have some semblance of a left.
Mhm.
We don't have any, like, as far as the left
Oh,
with any kind of
the left
power, like
the left
we
got
have none.
completely neutered though
Yeah.
when it came to like knocking out Corbyn. When Corbyn was essentially neutralized as a threat. Politically, I don't think it's unfair to say he was assassinated by like
No, not at all.
completely and utterly scurrilous
It's not unfair.
anti-Semitism charges that are based in nothing. Like he was completely and utterly smeared and ousted from the leadership of the Labor Party. So like since that time, the guy that came in, Keir Starmer, is basically like the difference between the Tories and the Labor Party now is essentially like much like the difference between the Republicans
Yeah.
and the Democrats right now. I mean,
Yeah, no, exactly. The Labor Party is just cut to nothing.
Mhm. Yeah, they just slashed it to ribbons, and like that was essentially not even if like Biden had won the primary, but if like if like Joe Manchin had become president or something like that, or leader of the opposition. It's disgusting, man. But yeah, in the United States, there's also a possibility in the short term of workers getting a rail strike happening. This is not like passenger rail. This is a lot more like the logistics sector, right?
Lay it
National,
on me. We got like 5 more minutes.
yeah, U.S. railroad workers in closer to a possible national strike. After Biden appointed an emergency board to help resolve a labor dispute, rail workers warn, quote, "We have the ability to stop the trains from moving." This is, and in these times, it was Dateline just a couple days ago, this Monday, the 25th. After waiting over 2 years to secure a new union contract and still reeling from the impacts of Wall Street ordered cost-cutting measures, 115,000 beleaguered workers who operate the nation's freight railroads are inching closer towards a possible strike, which could come as soon as September. Now, like that seems like a really long time away, but there's a lot of like weird procedure that needs to happen for these kind of things to happen.
Mm-hmm.
In an effort to drive down operating expenses and reward their wealthy shareholders, in recent years, railroad companies have implemented precision scheduled railroading, or PSR, a version of just in time lean production that centers on reducing the workforce and closing facilities. You know why the supply chain in America just breaks all the time now? It's because we just thin all of the people out. We get as few people on staff to do all these jobs as possible. So if there's any kind of disruption in it, it becomes extremely fragile and it falls to bits, right?
Correct.
For years, they cut and cut and cut. It didn't matter which department or terminal, it was indiscriminate, said Michael Paul Lindsay, an Idaho based locomotive engineer with Union Pacific. That's one of the railroad companies. Over the past 6 years, the major Class 1 railroads like BNSF, Union Pacific, CSX, and Norfolk Southern have slashed their collective workforce by 29%. That's almost a third. 45,000 workers, leaving the industry woefully understaffed and putting extra strain on workers already accustomed to long, irregular hours. So essentially, they've basically working people to the bone, not giving pay increases over. They're just essentially making them work overtime all the time. Despite that fact, railroad industries remain highly profitable, with owners raking in $183 billion in stock buybacks and dividends since 2010. That is a jaw-dropping amount of money.
It's crazy, dude. So
Since
bad.
2022, coalitions of 12 unions, dubbed the United Rail Unions, have been in negotiations with the major railroad companies represented by National Carriers Conference Committee. The unions include the Teamsters affiliated Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and the Trainmen, the Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transport Workers Division, Smart TD. I've got a buddy of mine that's actually a member of Smart TD. But with bargaining kept behind closed doors, for a few specifics in the negotiation have been made made public until recently. But in addition to raises in healthcare, workers say one of the major points of contention is staffing. So essentially, they're not even they definitely are not against the idea of getting raises, but the top priority seems to be we need more people out here working these rails because we're killing people. I mean, like, railroad work is dangerous, right?
So dangerous.
I mean, like, those trains are big.
Crazy.
And if they run over your foot or whatever, or just like run into somebody, like, you can see people get squashed between cars or all kinds of crazy stuff. Those things are heavy.
It's bad, bro. Like, yeah, it's, oh man, the amount of stuff that it's like, I feel like railroads are like it's the transportation that like we've forgotten about. We just it just kind of sits in the background, but so much stuff gets moved by train in this country, and so much of that is not owned by the government, and it's just these.
No, the tracks themselves are owned by private companies.
Yeah, you know how we love wrestling. We can talk about like it's like the territory days of wrestling, where these train companies, these railway companies, have just cut up the country in their own little fiefdoms. It's so bad.
Yeah. Apparently, Brandon's been involved in this as well.
Of course, he has. Amtrak Joe.
Mm-hmm. The unions and railroads entered into mediation earlier this year when it became clear an agreement would not be achieved through direct bargaining. A mediated negotiation reached an impasse in June. In accordance with the Railway Labor Act's cumbersome process, the next step was a mandatory 30-day cooling off period, at the end of which either party could have entered into self-help, meaning a strike or a lockout, unless President Joe Brandon appointed a presidential emergency board to examine the dispute and produce recommendations on the settlement within another 30 days. This is crazy, by the way. The fact that that they have to like jump through these extra hoops, in order to like go on strike is insane, right? That's really weird. This month, at the end of the cooling off period, Biden did indeed step in and appointed a emergency board consisting of 3 legal experts who have helped resolve labor disputes in the past, delaying the possibility of the strike. So basically, Brandon slowed everything down. Quote, anybody who thought Biden wouldn't appoint a PEB was foolish, Camino told in these times. There's too much at stake politically. He also knows that we will kick the railroad's ass because there will be a rock solid support for this strike and the economy would quickly grind to a halt. So, like, if Biden didn't appoint this board, all your Amazon stuff, all of your anything that you want in the world ain't going nowhere. This country's shut down. Like, you know what's primarily transported over rail these days? If it's not a pipeline, oil is transported by train, which is super important.
Yeah, I mean,
mm-hmm.
we again, like the amount of labor that just takes this country, you know, that allows us to just live our lives, our little like convenient lives that we just kind of forget exists, and we don't treat these people right because it goes back to the thing we talked about to kind of wrap up the show. Comes back to the thing of the language that's used, like the corporate speak language. So these people who are working these jobs know that they're holding the country together. That's why they're so slow to strike, because they don't want a collapse in society.
They're not trying to burn it all down.
Yeah, but they just want fair trade for their labor. That's all. Jeez.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, and sometimes, look, man, this is the way I look at it. If you don't have that weapon on the table and the credible, like, if the gun's not loaded, you can't pretend that you're going to use it, right?
No, absolutely.
So, like, there, and again, obviously, in Britain, the gun is loaded, and they currently got it pointed directly at, you know, the government. In this situation, you know, hopefully the workers are on board for this. Hopefully they have a spine, and hopefully they get everything that they they want and they need. But anyway, that's gonna, I think, bring us to a close for today's show. We're pre-recorded today, so you know, it's a little bit different here, but we do want to get used to doing the old streaming schedule on Twitch.
Stream the Weem.
Twitch.tv/Good Morning Comrade Radio. You can follow me on Twitter at Eminent Prof. Follow Robert on Twitter at Comrade Blank. Also, Robert, we got
What?
shit coming out soon. Hopefully, that's coming up somewhere down the line, or what's up?
Oh, we'll see. Let's just.
We need to find some union printers, right?
Yeah, we do need a union printer. So
Yeah.
if you are a union printer in the tri-state area of Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana,
Or anywhere nationally, even.
holler at us, I guess.
Yeah,
we can move those shirts by train.
Oh, we can talk about this after, but yeah, thanks everybody for listening. We can this has been WHIV LP New Orleans 102.3.